Welcome to that spiritual, actual, factual answers to questions you're asking. You find them inside you, recite you, reciting the records of cash. We laughing, we drafting, the passion through vary. It's time for that comedy, dramedy, all of the fanciest, catchiest acronyms. Listeners, listen, we traveling. Conscious is always unraveling. The reading you're having is mapping you back to your natural habitat. Abracadabra, it's magicless, passing it. To top it off, the host, all the classiest. Now, what were you asking for? All of the answers? What? All the answers.
Okay, I feel like we have to update our avid, rabid listeners, all 6 of them. Yeah. We have to update them with, we have to talk just a tiny bit about Denise.
Okay, why?
Because
I feel like your story is more interesting. You've been traveling all over the country.
Oh God, yeah, we have to talk about that too.
Okay, we'll talk about me real briefly and then we'll talk about you a little more often.
Okay, well, thoroughly. So mostly Denise, just because it's so fun for, I'm in love with the fact that you guys met. I'm in love with the fact that you're having a great dating experience.
Yeah.
B, I'm in love with the fact that that's happening as a result of us talking to each other like maniacs on weird computer time. And she heard it, and now you guys are having a great time. I love that story. When does that happen in life?
I have no idea. I tell that story all the time because it is just too good a narrative.
It's so effing good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's solid. And it is rock solid. We're feeling so happy and joyful. And like, I think because of the kind of like brazenness with which it occurred, we stayed like in front of all of the games and bullshit. Like, we're out front of it like so quickly. I was mentioning, I was telling the story to the guy who lives upstairs in the back, and he said, how did you meet? And I was saying it with my other housemate. We were all sort of just in front of the house for a moment. We'd all converged. He was coming home.
Did you forget your roommate's name?
No, I was deciding right then whether I was saying people's names. I was like,
got it. Okay.
Being cagey, strangely. I don't know. It's a strange new world. Like, does anybody care whether their names are said? Right. I'm not saying anything about them at all, so why does it matter? But he's actually kind of a minor celebrity in and of himself. So,
you've told me this. That's
so
right.
Like he had an awesome podcast that he like an amazing, very well listened to podcast, a short, like a limited run one. Anyway, great guy. Point is, he said, how'd you meet?
On this point really quickly, because this is an interesting point, and then I want to hear your story, of course, is that a friend of mine got really upset with me once just for posting a picture of her backyard.
Yeah.
I got in trouble.
Yeah, that's why you don't know.
You don't know. And she had great reasons. Actually, once she laid it out for me, I was like, you're right.
Pot?
No, not anymore. No. She was never growing pot. But it was more like it's so complicated to explain, and I won't get into it because she would hate that.
Right. But now you're going to revisit.
Yeah. But the specific reasons, once I really thought about it, I went, well, that makes total sense. But it was like the reaction was very large because part of her reaction was like, why didn't you think of this? And my point of view was, well, because I didn't. I mean, whatever. But the point being, you're right that like,
I'm just going to default to a little more neutrality on people.
Okay, so you were standing up front. You guys were talking.
And he said, how'd you meet? And I told him the basic story and how when she first contacted me after being sort of given permission to, she just was like, hi, I think you're awesome. I would love to hang out with you. What do you think? And he just was like, oh my God, that's so grown up. How amazing. And it was just like that feeling of like, and then we got into that conversation, the three of us, about all different ways in which we don't just express the unfiltered truth and request and desire without it having like the ladenness of creepiness or the ladenness of like heaviness. And it's a fine line. You got to walk it with that open heart. Like we were talking on the Allison episode about, you have to be able to ask people, but from an open place.
That's it.
And then you have to be also completely okay for them to say no. And they have to know that without you having to explain that it's okay that if you say no, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, no, none of that. I know it's uncomfortable, but it's so much more, it's so much better. Like now we're going to talk about Alfred with his name.
Yes.
But Alfred did this great thing when we were connected by mutual friends. And he called me on the telephone,
What's that?
with a I know. It rang.
Did he go through the exchange?
And I wasn't there or something. And then he left a message. And in the message, he said, "Hi, this is Alfred. I'm friends with Karen and Fred. They said that we should probably meet because we might have stuff in common. Would you like to get together sometime?" And it was just like so straightforward and nothing on it. And just like, "I'd like to see if the dating thing could work with you. Would you like to try that?" And I was like, "Yes, I would." Clean.
Yeah.
Clean and easy. Grown up.
Yeah, no
like
game. No game.
No, what's with the games? We're all goddamn adults. What are we? Well, who's watching? Who are the referees of this game? Nobody. Nobody's watching.
Somebody's got to make a lot of money on a book in order, and that's why we have rules.
Oh, okay. So they can write So they can write a book called The Rules.
How to play the game.
That everybody disagrees with and hates anyway.
Yeah.
Sort of.
All
Okay,
right, you've
so
been
here you
going
are.
all over the world. What's up?
But you meet this woman and
Oh.
it's amazing and she's great. You meet her through our goddamn podcast. And then
Which is the new name of this show, our goddamn podcast.
And I keep talking, I'll like text you and you'll be with her and we'll have these lovely chit chats where she's like generous with me and pulling tarot cards for me and being a wonder person. And I don't know. I just wanted to celebrate it because I think it's really sweet. That's really all I have about it.
Me too. It's happy. It's happy days. It's really happy days. This is, I mean, yeah. And here's thing number 3 I'm trying to learn. And now I'm even going back on it by doing it, but by discussing it. I'm trying to learn how to just say yes, happy, without also saying, and the world's a garbage fire, and da 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 da, and I have, that's a fucking given. We know this. I don't have to excuse my happiness with a
even if it
caveat.
Let me ask you something. And no, even if it wasn't a given though, why would you? Why?
Because I feel this need to say like it's the guilt over feeling unfiltered happiness. Like this is a thing we've talked about many times. Like just fucking, how about you just feel it?
I just feel okay with having unfiltered happiness, and I think
that's what I'm learning.
I hear you. I think what's interesting to me about it is I think like, because it was so not the case for so long, and I had to actively learn how to do it out of like a desperate desire to be liberated from constant pain and suffering. I think once I got to like the mental reasons why it makes sense, and then the liberation in my heart, I was like, never for a millisecond going to look back. But again, this comes back to a thing that we've talked about a lot, which is like that thing where if you're not super in pain all the time, the difference between that, like if you're well parented and then you're just a normal level of neurotic like you, or you're poorly parented and a high level of injured and traumatized like me, the motivation is different to like get to full fineness with everything, because I'm coming from so much more pain. I mean, that's my theory about it. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, because of the things you were saying, that, that I'm not coming from as much trauma and pain, and I was given consciousness of the other human beings that exist on the planet, and that consciousness sometimes manifests itself as some version of guilt or some version of, and guilt meaning like I've often, I'll feel guilty that I have good because other people have bad.
Right, but I'm saying I have consciousness of other humans as well.
Right.
And I don't do guilty for having good.
Right.
I don't like that other people have bad.
Of course you don't. Right. And I think, I agree with you 100%. The thing I am learning is, in fact, Denise will text me just randomly, "You deserve good things." And she'll just be like, "Wake up this morning and fucking say that to yourself." And I'll be
you're
like,
receiving that kind of shit well?
Yeah, of course I am. But I'm
What do you mean, of
learning
course I
to.
am?
No, I mean, not of course. I am learning to. I totally receive it well. I'm like, yes, thank you. But it's a message I need to hear.
I hear you. I think what I'm pointing at is that some people wouldn't even like to receive that message. Like the fact that you're receiving it well is already big.
Yeah.
Like that you're going, thanks, you're trying to help me. You're not going, fuck you, bitch, don't tell me how to feel.
Yeah, no, not at all.
That's what a lot of people do.
Not even a tiny bit. Oh, Jesus, yeah. Holy shit. It's so nice I have so much more to say on this whole subject of like the analysis I've been doing of why it feels good. in ways that haven't felt good in a long time with a lot of different people for different reasons.
Could you say more about it? Why does it feel good?
It feels good because I think
I'm going to close this. I'm listening. I have to close this door.
Okay. I accepted a while ago. I keep going back and forth. Like in my fantasy brain, I'll construct a situation where I'll be like, God, it'd be nice to date someone who didn't bring along a lot of fucking baggage, just in the simplest terms. And then I'm like, that sounds so misogynist, or that sounds so whatever, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I talk through that, and then I'm like, of course. And then I look around, and then I end up saying, like, of course, everybody's got their bullshit, which they do. Of course, we all have some bullshit. We're not all bullshit free. But I think I accepted, like, no. Especially in the sort of weird poly world that I'm living in, like, well, everybody there's got some going on, because there's always, you know what? It's not baggage, it's drama. It's fucking drama. There
you go.
It's drama. That's that good. You aren't taking care of yourself.
There you go.
And I think I've accepted so much taking care of your own shit drama for so fucking long as the price of admission to be with anybody, because we're all so fucked up. This was my old narrative. Yeah. And just to be with someone who's like, oh, I got fucking problems and I'm fucking dealing with them. And I've done a lot of fucking spiritual work, and I'm here for this right here. That's what I'm here for. I'm not here for laying a whole bunch of other shit on it. And it's just so clean.
Wow.
Yeah. It's just so clean to be with someone. And I said this to her the other day. This is not news. Like, this is exactly what I was saying to her. It's just like, we have clean paths of communication. I did something the other day that finally kind of surprised her in a negative way. She was like shocked by it. And she kind of told me, and I was like a little defensive about it. And then later on, I was like, yeah, no, that's exactly a thing that I would like to not do. But the fact was that she could tell me about it right away without jumping down my goddamn throat about it. She was just like, oh, wow, you just surprised me for the first time. That felt weird. And I was like, well, it's not weird because, okay, I'm just going to hear that. And then I was like, and then I still felt the feelings later on. And I was like able to say to her, I'm still feeling guilty, defensive, sad. And then we were like, hey, you want to sit with those feelings? And then we got to do some sitting with feelings, which is what I've been supposed to be working on. And then we lay on the bed and I fell asleep, which I apparently needed to do, like while meditating in those feelings. And then when I woke up, they were gone. I slept the light. Maybe the light put me to sleep.
Maybe that's your memoir title.
The light puts me to sleep.
No, sleeping the light.
Sleeping the light. Anyway, that's my story. How about you? What's been going on?
But wait a minute.
Damn it. I can't. I keep trying to push it onto you. You won't let me.
No. So then you woke up, and then did you talk more about, were you like, well, I guess the feelings are gone and I guess you were right? Or how did that?
Oh, I'd already said that, I think, before going in. I was like, I'm aware now that I was having a defensive reaction because I do things sometimes kind of in a flare, sometimes that feel a little not okay. And like they just kind of jump out of me, or I get hyper, or I get a little energized and I fucking do something. But it's usually things in this case that I don't like. So her calling me on it was purely love, but it was also like protecting herself, because she was like, that I didn't like that. So I need to identify it.
Yeah.
And then I was able to say, thank you. I love that you told me that. Here are the residual feelings from that. But it wasn't and it wasn't super intellectual and like, here are the feelings I am feeling as a result of that action. It was just clean and simple, and the emotions were allowed to exist, and they didn't have any stank on them.
Oh, that's the best.
Yeah. When you can just be like,
huge.
I feel feelings. Oh, good. I'm glad you're feeling feelings, because feelings should be felt.
Question number 67 on this. And if you're not open to talking about this, we won't. Fine. Obviously. But how does it work for you and Rami when you're like having something so good like this? I have a theory. My theory is Rami knows all about it. You've told Rami all the detail. If there's been time for you guys to talk, Rami is in on it and knows the deets. Is that right?
Totally. That is 100% true. That is absolutely true. And Rami is psyched that I have romantic love currently in my geographic area. Like that I
That's
have
so great.
present romantic love is a great joy. That's the concept of compersion.
And what's compersion?
Compersion in the non-monogamy world is
Yeah.
the joy you get from your partner's joy that is not connected to your own.
Huh.
And it's not a at best, it's not a codependent joy. It's a joy of just like, oh, good, the person I love is happy. Of course that makes me happy.
Right.
Because it doesn't take a damn thing away from me.
You've defined it for me before, but I wanted to hear it for the podcast people who might not know. I love that idea so very much. I think it's a really nice thing if you can hold that for people.
And I think it's always applied to like the romantic, like you get compersion when your other partner's getting laid or whatever. But but I wish it wasn't only discussed in that framework. I just, in general.
I mean, as soon as you said it, I was like, man, I have compersion for you right now.
Yeah, because you love me and I'm getting something that you are happy for.
I have compersion that Alfred's reading a book right now, except we're dating, so that doesn't count. I have compersion for my dog. She's resting.
Well, no, but point being, your compersion is about joy that Alfred is getting, not necessarily joy that Alfred's dick is getting. That's what I'm saying is most of the time it's only applied to like dick. Or other genital combinations.
Yeah. We're using dick in the
abstract
galactic perspective.
Giant galactic D.
Yeah. Well, I'm really happy for you. And I think our listeners would be as well. They're probably having compersion for you.
Yeah, they probably are. Most of them. And one of them is mad.
Just why not?
Just because.
They should be.
Someone's got to be jealous about something. I'm just going to say, I want to get into your talk, but our guest is going to come on probably in a few minutes. So just depending on where we're at.
Time.
I told them 4:30, which is usually what we say, like half hour in, but she will be signing on and then we'll let her in soon after. But I might abruptly interrupt you.
Totally cool.
To bring her on.
I'm in an interesting place where I think because during my trip, I was so amazed every other minute. I'm not even exaggerating. It was the most magical, synchronistic, satisfying sort of spiritual journey I've been on ever. And then the retreat that I led gave me so much and cleared so much for me personally that the trip back from there, I ended up driving back from Massachusetts to Denver, and it was filled with gleeful, blissful, magical, synchronistic shit every effing day, all the time.
Yeah.
And I could talk about it. I'm almost hesitant to talk about it since we do have a guest, because I'm going to go, there was so much that happened that I could talk the whole 2 hours.
Well, maybe we should set that as our next conversation, because you probably still have a little processing to do even. I'd love it.
Well, 100%. And I'd love to talk about here. Let's take a nugget of it. And it feels like a kind of a relevant nugget, and it may become part of our conversation with our guest today, whose name is
Sis Nau T. I'll tell you more about her in a second. I'm going to send her a little message in the waiting room just to say, we'll bring you on in about 5 minutes. Okay. If that's all right for you.
Nau T is spelled how?
Nau space T. Sis, like sister, Nau T. Well, you can ask Sis Nau T about her name.
Okay. Can't wait to hear.
Yeah. Just a sec. Go ahead. Start talking.
Well, it's the concept of, it's kind of deep and esoteric. I'll wait till you're ready. Don't worry.
Okay.
Don't rush. We have a wonderful Desmond who is wonderful at cutting out chunks of silence.
Yes, okay. I'm back.
So more and more, this thing is happening where when I work with, I'll say that specifically the Christ light of the Christ, which is, for anyone who's confused, not connected to religion. In working with the Christ light, it's incredibly powerful light. Which is an understatement. I can't find words to adequately express how big and powerful it is. And I transmitted it for people for 4 days straight in this retreat. And it was 4 to 5 hours of it a day. And to say I was receiving from it at the same time is also an understatement. I was being radically reborn every, millisecond from it. It's very humbling, very powerful energy. And what I find is happening more and more as I've been working with the Christ light more and more lately is that the way that the divine is entangled with or merged with or a part of what I like to call the quantum entanglement of reality is really expanding in my universe. And what I mean by that is, I'll give you a practical example. When I'm saying the quantum entanglements of reality, I'm saying the kind of stuff where you can be like, I wish there were I wonder what it would take to get a chicken sandwich. And you look to your right and the next thing you see is a chicken sandwich store. Or like, I need to get there at 9:30 because then the thing happens at 10. And then there's no way your GPS says you're going to make it. You're going to get there by 11:30. And then you look down and you arrive at the hotel at exactly 9:30. Like constant miraculous unfoldings where you're having a dialogue with consciousness and able to affect it when it's meant to be affected, like when it's good or aligned or something. And what happened for me on this retreat was the two energies, the realm of the all that is, or you could say the quantum entanglements of reality, or the here and now, the affectable cause and effect universe, and the divine light were merged into one thing. Whereas before I kind of had them in my mind in a certain way, separate from one another, almost like you go to the divine light to then have it affect your quantum entanglements, or you go to the divine light and it helps with your life. But I'm starting to experience the divine light as my life and my life as the divine light. It's really trippy. And I'm starting to understand why certain consciousness teachers say certain things they say that I couldn't believe them because I didn't have access to that field being available all the time. So all of a sudden I have all this access to that. And I'm like, feeling quite humbled by it and wanting to apply it well and use it well, but also feeling very curious and excited and kind of going like, wow, what's possible now, you know? And I have some cool stories about, I kind of want to tell you one story about how it showed up on the trip. And do we have like 3 minutes before?
Probably. Or, we could just even bring Nau T on, start talking, and then return to that story. And then she could hear it and react to it. What do you think about that?
Yep. Sure. Let's do that.
Yeah, I love that. Let's do that. Okay. I'm going to bring her on. Yes. There you are. And we can hear you.
Can you see me though?
Yeah, we can see. Oh, yes. You sound great and you look great.
Oh, wonderful. Gotta look good for radio, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Yes. All right. So I'm going to make up an introduction for you to Katie because Katie doesn't know you at all. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to correct everything I say, please. Okay. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
All right. This is Sis Nau T. I literally just thought, I just want this person on the podcast because every time I hang out and just talk with you, I laugh. I feel a little bit humbled by the sort of joy / depth of what you bring to the conversation. Aww. And you're just kind of funny as shit. And I love I want to bring two comedians together. Now, what you do in the sort of world as work, I don't actually know. I think you work for Swords to Plowshares, maybe.
I do. Sure. Great. You're fabulous.
I did that. I don't even actually know what they exactly do.
Right.
So
I don't know what those words mean.
Yeah. So that's my very sloppy. And Sis Nau T, you've been listening to a little bit to the podcast, a little bit about Katie, spiritual teacher, comedian. So I feel like I could almost just say Sis Nau T, spiritual person, comedian, meet Katie, spiritual person, comedian. There you go.
Hello.
Hey, so nice to meet you, Katie. Yay.
You too. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
First of all, I have to know two things. One, how did you two meet?
Wild soiree at the chateau is what I'm going to go with. That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
I would say that Sis Nau T is one of the, we have the Chateaulites, which are people who live at Chateau L'Orange, which is my home. And then we've got the sort of Chateaulite satellites, which are people who are deeply connected to the house, either because you were already friends with everybody in the house anyway. And then there was a brief period of time where you were subletting one of the apartments and then another spot for a little while. And basically, if a major space opens up in this house, we're going to be reaching out and be like, get in here.
And I'm like running.
Right.
My
so
favorite
Nau
place.
T is very much a part of the Chateau community.
How cool. Okay.
I love the
Got
Chateau.
That makes total sense. Number 2 is, may I ask about your name?
Absolutely. I get that one all the time. So the short answer is, right, it started off as Naughty Von back in the 1900s when I was doing my MC thing on the microphone. And it was the thing of the day to have your acronyms. LL Cool J, we know him, right? Ladies love Cool James. KRS-One, Knowledge Rules Supreme, right? Naughty Von, Notorious, and undeniably T. Von. Yvonne is my middle name. And so, T is kind of play on words, but it was like I was outing myself for folks who knew and for folks who didn't. It was just, first initial of my government name.
Wait, outing yourself as what?
As T, as queer. So T is kind of like on the low, like, what's the T? Like, is so-and-so T? But again, this is the 1900s when we weren't as visible as we are today.
I thought, okay, this is fun for 800 reasons. But here's one thing. I'm new to falling in love with 2 specific amazing drag queens on the internet. This is, anyway, Katya and Trixie Mattel.
Okay.
And they do fantastic, like, watching of shows and being beautiful, insane, creative wizards. And then they have a show where they just like talk shit for 12 minutes and it's hilarious. It's called, and I tried to get Cassidy into it and he wasn't having it. But in their shows that I'm all obsessed with, they're constantly using the phrase, like, what's the tea? Oh, honey, that's the tea, the tea, the tea. And they've said in their show that the phrase, the tea, comes from kind of like queer culture. But specifically, they were talking about like that the origins of it were, wait, let me get this right. Oh, damn it. Not pageants, but like.
The ball.
What's the ball?
Ball culture.
Culture.
A little bit. So there are, just like all the words that we take and use, right?
Yes.
There are many origin stories. My understanding is that the tea and its relationship to the queer community is as a result of the meeting places being tea rooms way back when.
Like drinking tea,
like
Earl Grey.
Yeah. Like, honey, what's his tea? What's her tea? Do they?
Okay, but now also, like, I looked at the Urban Dictionary.
Yeah, that's a reliable source.
I'm a white person because I don't know stuff. And I looked and it was like, and then I Wikipedia'd it and I'm just like looking, I'm trying to learn.
Right.
And it was like, it said a lot of different sources said that it was about, generally speaking, the term these days refers to like gossip about like, what's the tea? You're like, what's the scoop? Kinda.
Honey, spill the tea. Yeah. And it has evolved. However, that is the evolution of it because it is, I want to say the umbrella for it would be that it is code for queerness and getting information that would not necessarily be accessible to the broader community.
That makes total sense.
Right? So it's all in there.
That's fascinating. I love it so much. What was the thing? It was a play I did, and there was a phrase in the play. It was about lesbians specifically in the, oh God, I'm going to get the time period wrong, but like before lesbians were allowed to be lesbians in our world. Right. And there was a thing you would say, like in the 50s or something, you'd be at a bar and you'd say, what's the tea? But it wasn't what's the tea. You'd say something. And if you were a gay lady, you would know what it meant. And if you weren't, you'd be like, I'm sorry, what does that mean? And it was just like lingo that would help you navigate the world, which reminds me of like my 1,000 years.
Katie, you're a word nerd, huh? Are you a word nerd?
Oh my God. Big time word nerd.
Yeah.
Like the word nerdiest. Love it.
I can tell.
12-step recovery, people say to each other, so are you you'll meet someone and you'll think you remember them from a meeting, and you'll be like, so are you a friend of Bill?
Mm-hmm.
And if they are, they'll be like, total friend of Bill.
Right.
But if they're not, they'll be like, Bill who?
Right. Right.
And then you're like, oh, this is not the guy I thought it was. Because
Right.
of course, for people listening, Bill Wilson, founder of AA.
Right.
So anyway.
No, but
There's-
I love that. So now you're going to send me on a search because I'm a big word nerd. So that's the other part of it. Like, not only do I want to know what it means, where it come from, what's the history of it, So I don't know that one though, but one of the things, but this was later on, I want to say like in the 70s, maybe late 60s, 70s, the children, queer folks were referred to as the children.
Huh.
Yeah. Now I don't. Family?
Yeah.
Oh, are you family?
Yeah.
Is she family?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like I've heard that one in context of just basically whatever a context might be. Like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
they're family. Like that
Yeah.
could be we're Jews or we're queer or whatever group needs identification. I've heard that one.
Yeah. I think
okay.
I've heard family mostly attributed to Black culture and queer culture. That's where I've heard it. With Jews,
Mhm.
they say tribe. Are you tribe?
Oh, right. MOT,
Oh,
Yeah.
MOT?
member of the tribe.
Ah,
I've heard people use that one. MOT. Are you
Nice.
MOT?
Right. See,
I like
and
it.
this is, I'm learning so much. I love it. This is why I love kicking it with Cassidy. For all the reason he likes to kick it with me, that's why I like to kick it with him.
Oh, I love it. I love
Yeah.
it so much. And then okay, I think you said, Cass, this is what I heard you say, that Sis Nau T sells plowshares.
That is not what I said, but it's close.
That's great.
And I don't know what that is.
So Plowshare?
Well, let's talk about, I said you work with Swords to Plowshares, which is an organization,
Oh.
Yes.
which is an old, if I may take my word nerd into it, I believe it is referencing maybe a biblical thing or something about we will turn our swords to plowshares, which means we will reforge our weapons of war into weapons of plowshares are like scythes or something that you use to gather wheat. So like we'll turn them into ways to feed ourselves instead.
Yes.
Is that
Okay.
close?
That is spot on. And I just want to say, just for the record, that yes, that is the reference for the name. However, we are not a religious organization at all.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say.
Right.
Yeah.
So what it's the organization, my mild-mannered Monday through Friday person goes to Source Plowshares, an organization that is a veterans advocacy organization. So we work with vets around everything from bad paper to financial management, housing support, employment. We advocate in Washington for changes in benefits for veterans. So, here's a fun fact. The whole PTSD thing, that is a result of Swords to Plowshares advocacy in the 70s.
You
Getting
mean the
people to
concept?
recognize it.
Yes. Getting it recognized as a thing that
Wow.
veterans were dealing with.
Right. Oh,
Boom.
that's incredible.
Yeah. And
Ugh.
that's just one of the ways that we do the work. So yeah, it's great. I love it. I love supporting other vets. I'm a veteran. Air Force
Oh,
in the
my
building.
God.
Aim high. Did you know that,
Wait.
Cass? Did you know I was a
I
vet?
think I did, but
Yeah.
only because when you lived here for a little while, I would occasionally get, as you would probably put it, some of your government paper would come in the mail.
Right.
And I'd
Right.
be like, who the hell is this name that is written on this thing? So all these names that I could not recognize
Yeah.
because I know Sis Nau T, and I'm like, who is
Yeah.
does anybody know? And then you'd be like, that's me. That's me.
Wait a minute. So when were you were in the Air Force?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you fly the planes?
No, I fixed them to make sure that they were able to fly.
Wow. When and where and why?
In the 1900s in the Philippines, and because I did not know enough about college applications and things like that to get a scholarship. I mean, like I could have, but I just didn't know
Right.
how to navigate the college system. But what I did know is because the US is great at marketing. What I did know is that I could go to school for free in the military. I didn't know what I wanted to do or what I wanted to be. I don't come from an extremely financially wealthy family. And so all I knew about college was like, it costs a lot of money and there's lots of partying. And I was not about, I love the party and I was not about to trick off my family money in that way. So I was like, oh, but the Air Force, I can do both. And so I joined, and my initial plan was to study electronic engineering. I wanted to do my 20 years and retire and start a computer company. So it's what I wanted to do. And so I joined. What they don't tell you is that when you're in, you still just like college, you still have to do your job while you're going to school. But I was an aircraft mechanic, so my job had us flying different places because your aircraft's no good unless you know it can beat up another aircraft, right? That's what they're for. So you go out and you play war games. Well, where your jet goes, you go. And I'm going to tell you, it's a little challenging to study electronic engineering up close and in the classroom. At a distance, it's ridiculous. So yeah, that never happened. But yeah, so that's the where, when, and why.
And then thank you for sharing, by the way. It's fascinating. I mean, God, it's just another layer of me learning about more and more and more about my own privilege and my own, like, fucking hell.
I know.
Like, you know what I mean? Just like that, there are so many people who know of college only through, you can only even think of college because of if you're in the Army or some branch of it. Yeah. And I just, it's like, God, did I grow up in a upper class white world where it was like a given, like you're gonna, like I'm age 4 going, which college am I going to? And I better get good in second grade because that's going to affect what happens in high school. And then maybe I can't go to Harvard is how that was like the stress in my reality, which is honestly, it's not a stress. It's a high stress, but it's a very different stress that leads to very different things later. And like,
I'm having this conversation with my son right now. He'll be 13 on the 22nd of next month. And he's having a hard time, like a lot of young people are, with going to school remotely and things like that. And so I'm like, son, what do you want to do with your life? Forget school. I mean, like if that was, like, let's think about what you want to do, because not everybody's built for it. Right.
Nope.
And I'm like, what would you be doing if you were not going to school every day? He's like, I'd be playing video games all day. He wants to be a YouTube gamer type guy. I said, all right, man, I tell you what, go set up your YouTube and really show me that you're serious. And then we won't have to sweat your grades so much. I'm not saying you don't have to go to school and you don't have to pass, but like, show me that you're making the investment in your own future so I don't have to worry about it.
That's really great.
He thought so.
You just told him he can play video games.
Well, but Cassidy, you know me. I don't just talk.
No.
And he knows that too. And I told him, I said, you set up your YouTube and really get busy at it, and I'll invest in you. And then, and we'll see as it goes along how you're doing in school, how you're feeling about school. But I also want to nurture your passion. So, a lot of us feel blocked, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like acting is something that is, well, in the 1900s was a little more accessible in the school realm, but like being a gamer and things, it's like, he could make money. He could make money now doing it, but that's what I need him to know, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if I know it, but he needs to know what his options are in this world.
That's right.
And honestly, I can't tell him because this is a whole new millennium. He teaches me about as much as I teach him.
I'm sure. That's so can I just praise you for just a second and acknowledge you for doing the thing as a parent where you're nurturing what your kid is actually saying. A, you're listening to your kid. B, you're nurturing in your kid what your kid says they're interested in, even if it's fucking video games, because, like you said, we're in a new world where he could make money doing that. My parents, this is the thing about privilege or whatever. It comes with a lot of shit. Like, I'm not saying,
We know. We know.
My parents were terrible at parenting. Terrible. Because they were sold the same bill of goods that their parents were, which was if you just hand the kid money or if you just get the kid into the right school, end of conversation, that's parenting. No, they forgot the whole listen to the kid, ask the kid a question, love the kid, maybe pay attention to the kid, nurture the kid. No, you just take them to Amherst College and they'll be fine. That's not correct.
No, I'm going to tell you, it was really weird. The whole, oh my gosh, what does parenting look like thing, right? When he showed up, I was like, what, because I knew that now, granted, my mom is great. She's awesome. She's amazing. She did a lot of work to not do what my grandmother did, but my grandmother was great too. I'm just saying she kept it moving in terms of, changes in the world. Right. And so I knew that there were some things that I wanted to do differently with my son. And I was like, well, what does that mean? And long story short, what I came to was that when children show up, right, it's kind of the same thing as like when you go on a vacation. My personal belief is that we come here with a mission, right? And so that's just like if I go on vacation, right? But I want to see things and do things. So I get a tour guide. I get a tour guide who's going to show me what I want to see and keep me safe. That's parenting. That's what I came up with. So I've been working with this dude like I'm his tour guide since he got here. No, I mean, like, I took it serious. Like, when I be holding him, I go like, yeah, man, you feel that? That's the wind. That's what happens outside. And I did this with him for 9 months. Like, I was like, you've been 9 months inside. Now you're outside. This is all new. Let's introduce you to the newness thing. But I take this tour guide business serious. And if you ask him what my job is, he will tell you to keep me safe and love me.
Well, could you go back in time and teach my rich white parents that?
Look, if I could go back in time, I don't know that you would have rich white parents.
She might be doing a little tinkering that might change the situation. Might go a little farther back. You might be going a little farther back.
Just an equity thing. It would be, not to say folks would be suffering, just to say it might. I don't know if you want me to go back, Katie.
I think you should. I think, look, that's my whole point is like, whatever we all think we've gained. I mean, if there's anybody who, okay, that's dumb. There's all the people who's still out there thinking we gain from this system in some way. Nope.
I was having it was an interesting conversation. I work with an arc. It keeps me from getting too wound up, right? I think about the entire arc of humanity and where we are, because otherwise I would be real pissed off all the time.
I believe that.
Right. So there's like, if you consider the pyramids as the starting point, or even the Dogon as the starting point, right? Then you can see how we came from a place, and maybe we just got here and lost our mind like kids going to college, right? But we came from a place and we hit a pinnacle and something happened. And then we started like, I don't know, this kind of weird up-down decline where we're doing this dance about returning, like getting further and further away from the roots. However, it in the tree being able to see more. Does that make sense?
Okay, it makes so much sense. I'm going to frame it in my language, and you tell me what you think about this. Like, what about this idea? I think my version of this would be something like, let's say in Egypt with the pyramids, it was like the aliens came and they gave us all the wisdom of the universe. There's a lot of people that say the pyramids, the aliens built the pyramids, and like, I'm fine with that. If that's reality,
well,
it's cool.
Listen, I'm a practitioner of comedic studies. So
you're with me.
We got a different through line on that. But I'm with you. I'm listening.
Okay, I hear you. Okay, well, here's my point though. Let's say, because you know how when you look at the history of Egyptology, or you look at like just the simplicity of like the architecture of the pyramids, and you look at nobody could figure out how they transferred all these big rocks from one place to another. Small problems like that are actually huge problems in a world where you have no technology. And then there's all this possible evidence maybe that there were technologies and that there were high levels of civilization and high consciousness and a lot of unity and a lot of togetherness. And so to me, I look at it like when you were saying like we were there and then something happened and then we're going back and forth, up and down, up and
right.
down.
But constantly on the arc. Because if we look at the analogy of the root and the tree piece, right? There's the root.
Yes.
The root goes down and it's very comfortable in the soil. Well, not comfortable, but it's in the soil, right? So it's there.
Yeah.
But then it starts to grow and it gets farther and farther and farther away from the soil. But as it grows, it's producing fruit, right?
Right.
So then the fruit comes to fruition, its fullness. And what does the fruit do? It drops back down to earth.
That's right. Okay.
Right. And as humans, I think what we're doing is kind of this thing. So we were agricultural and then we moved away from that and went to industrial. And then we moved away from that. And now we're in the information age. But as all of that is happening, we're also getting deeper into our spiritual practices. We're also returning to our herbology. We're getting stronger in our love for the planet. And I could be wrong. I live in California, in Northern California. It's a bit of a bubble. However, when I look at the arc, right, of humanity, that's what it looks like to me. It's like we learn one step forward, two steps backwards, one step forward, two step backwards.
Okay.
But I feel like we're getting closer to one step, one step, one step.
Well, that's a very positive outlook, and I appreciate that. I think my framing of it was going to be something like we had all consciousness in the Egypt time. And then my theory would be something along the lines of like, that was too terrifying for people who wanted to be in control. So then the religion took the spiritual essence and teachings of what made the society work. They took the essence of it and then codified it and said, you can't have this unless you do X, Y, Z, which we would call religious dogma, right? Then if you get in the religion, and then if you're in the religion with the white people, you can make the money, or maybe it wasn't white people per se, but you get my point. Right. And then status and power. And then all of it becomes about money, status, and power. But of course, the teachings remain, but they're hidden and they're buried. They're hidden and they're buried. And right now, my thing, the way I would frame it is like shit just got the tension of burying it. This power of the spirit is so strong that it's going like, you cannot keep me in a fucking cage anymore. Pow!
Right.
And
Age
it's
of Aquarius.
exploded out. Exactly. And so here we are, reawakening what if we had known it and stayed knowing it and not codified it and hidden it behind walls back then, we wouldn't have to like explode open again. We'd just still be there.
I don't know though. I don't know. I think humans and humanity, consciousness even, is ebb and flow just like the rest of the universe, right? We have seasons when things grow. We have seasons when they're dormant. I think, and that's why the arc analogy works for me, because otherwise I'm like, it's where we were tells us where we can go, and where we are tells us like the probability and possibility of that. Does that make sense?
It makes 100% sense. And I'm very curious to find out, okay, where my head goes in this conversation is I go to my trauma history. Like, it's not just bad parenting. It's like other stuff, you know, and then I go, and like, who knows, genetics, how I was Judaism. I don't know. Being from Miami, I don't know what it is, whatever it is. But I have this, like, I would say that I'm like a optimistic pessimist.
Absolutely.
In other words, the way I look at it is like my default is like, we are fucked. And so I do a lot of spiritual shit so that I'm not living there.
Right.
And when I do my spiritual work, I could go in the Akashic records and I help other people and I help myself and I get really bright and shiny and get really positive and I move forward. But I don't wake up that way. Right. I wake up like we are fucked as a species and we're making everything worse every single day. Holy fuck, we're fucked. But I'm hearing you have a spin on reality that has underneath it a deep optimism. And I want to know where that comes from in you.
Star Trek. Star Trek.
Just you saying that makes me start to cry because I just got finished watching another episode of Star Trek Discovery, which is the show that I love more than any show on the earth. I don't know if you've watched it. Season 3 makes me cry every day I watch it.
I haven't gotten there yet, but so I'm a Star Trek fan from way back.
You're going back to TOS, right? The original series.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Next Generation. NRG? Yeah.
TNG.
TNG. Thank you. So here's the thing, though. It's always been like when they're talking about Earth, because we're very rarely there, right? When they're talking about Earth or humans, they're talking about a time when we didn't know how barbaric we were, when we didn't know that violence was unnecessary. The whole purpose of the Federation is about peace. And so here's the thing, like and I love it because we bounced around a little bit, but what Cass didn't share is that I'm also an aspiring author and I teach self-defense for the 21st century, which is about alternatives to violence and pathways to peace. No, I mean, but you can tell that's how passionate I like. That's what my passion is, like creating peace.
But that comes from your Star Trek love?
It just comes from the awareness, like I was saying, like I know we've been a peaceful, thriving, amazing, magical culture, right? And we're still doing amazing things. Like this right here, this conversation is relatively amazing, I think. But what I'm saying is we continue, like that didn't go away. When the fuck shit showed up, can I say I did?
You can say the fuck you want.
Okay. when the magic didn't go away when the fuck shit showed up. However, the fuck shit was a bully and the magic didn't quite have that left hook to say, sit the fuck down.
Yeah.
I'm bringing that sit the fuck down left hook.
That's what I feel exactly. Sis Nau T is my role in the world. People go, how are you an 8 on the Enneagram? Like too big, powerhouse, lots of energy, argumentative, but you're this spiritual healer. I'm like, you know why? Because we need that now. Yeah. We need someone loud enough to go like, sit down and wake up to God's light, you idiot fuck face.
Right.
Because that's what's required.
Yeah.
I love today's episode. Wake up to God's light, you idiot fuck face.
A buddy of mine said to me, we were having a similar conversation. He was like, I don't know, Nati. I think the average person is closer to shitbird than Buddha. And I was like, that's a quote.
That's correct.
Yeah.
But that's why they need us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it just did like to show up and do the work and be authentic, because I got to tell you, it was a long time before I could shake the notion of having to be some kind of martial arts master guru. Don't get me wrong, I know my shit, but like getting out of my head, like I have to be this before I can bring this message forward, when the reality is that my message is kind of counterculture to that. Yeah. So it's just everybody being okay with who they are, and that's the hardest shit.
Well, that's like, from my point of view, that's the whole thing. If everybody was okay with who they are, there would be no reason to be upset with other people.
See, but we don't get to learn that. We don't get to practice that. We don't have exercises, or like you can search them out, but not in the. I haven't seen it in martial arts, and it used to be a thing. One of the things that I share in my teachings is like warriors and soldiers are different.
Yeah,
right.
I agree.
Warriors and soldiers are different. Soldiers get paid to wage war. Warriors maintain the peace.
Right. Or fight to maintain it if they have to.
Right. But it's a different, it's coming from a different place.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. And so, man, like you could hire a soldier. You try to hire a warrior, you might lose your hand.
That's
honestly,
right.
It's insulting.
I know. Well, the other thing is too, so many people don't realize that how badly we need warriors right now. So then they get all weird if you're like strong, and it's like, no, you don't get it. You clearly are living in a realm of denial where you think it's okay to just kind of lay back.
Right.
If you lay back, there's plenty of people building armies of soldiers who are asleep and will just do what they're told.
Exactly. And that's the piece. And that's why I feel so passionate about this, is because there are folks out there, and I giggle to myself. There are folks out there right now building armies. And, it's because they're hurt and they're broken and they're lost and they're looking. Right. And so part of the teaching, the Doshe Healing Arts, part of the teaching is that, we work from a compassionate space. It's like, I'm not trying to do more damage. You're already hurt. Whooping your ass is not going to make your situation better, my situation better. I'm going to be sweaty. My clothes going to be fucked up. My hair going to, you know what I'm saying? It's all unnecessary. What is needed is healing. However, everybody is not about using their words. So it's good to be bilingual.
I know. And also everybody's also not about actually healing. People just want to live in their wound and live in their defensive structures and just like win some imaginary fight that it isn't happening.
Right.
Except that it is happening between a lot of people because nobody taught them, hey, if you found out what that wound was and went straight to the core of it and sat with that and cared for yourself there, you wouldn't be so upset on the road at the guy next to you.
Exactly.
You'd have handled your shit. But like self-responsibility is not a thing for a lot of people.
Right.
And understanding that the source, like the beginning step of the solutionary process is to find the wound within and treat it.
Yep. Find the peace within and cultivate it.
And then boy, do we have it backwards culturally, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So
indeed.
where do you teach these things and how do people find you and where do you teach? Let us plug you.
Oh, wonderful. So I teach wherever I'm called. The Doshe is really a labor of love. It's totally my passion, baby. Source of Plowshares pays my rent so that I can show up, and not stress about pushing it. But generally I'm I'll partner with local orgs to come in and do a self-defense class, usually Black women, girls, and queer QT POC folks. And you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube.
If they just go Sis Nau T for any of those things, or is it Doshe or what? What do we look for?
Yes, some are Sis Nau T, and that's
which is SISNAUT.
Yes, and NAU space T, right?
Right.
And Doshe Healing Arts is DOSHE and Healing Arts. Doshe is actually my great-grandmother's birth name. Yeah, and I named it after her because when I started doing this, it was just coming to the awareness that I had received a lot of just what we call mother wit, aka common sense, which is which is not as common as it used to be. But this is information I got from my great-grandmother, right? And passed down through my grandmother and to my mother and to me. So there's a way that we move that I realized that my friends didn't have that. And I was like, oh, well, it's time to bring Great Granny's teachings beyond the kitchen table, because this is where these conversations were happening. So when I decided, it was like, okay, well, we'll call it Doshe Healing Arts. And my great grandmother changed her name from Doshe to Mary Lee because she liked that better. And I have to say that or she won't let me rest well. She doesn't like Doshe. I like Doshe, and she's okay with the place that I'm coming from with it. But she wants folks to know that her name is Mary Lee.
And is she still with us?
Not on this side of the veil.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. They will make themselves known.
Oh, I know.
So it was like there would always be this uneasiness when I would share the story, and I was like, "What?" And so if you ask, they'll tell you. I was like, "Great Granny, what is it? What's going on?" And she told me, she's like, "I don't like that name." And now, granted, for anybody listening, no, I did not sit down and have a conversation and some voice, but she conveyed it to me in a way that I understood. So,
well, I mean,
yeah,
you're talking to a person who daily sits down and talks to people on the other side. So
right. So I know you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
I know
and our
you
listeners are people who can hang with that, or they wouldn't listen to this thing anymore.
This is true.
All the crazy shit I've said.
Yeah,
you
y'all
listen to
say some-
podcasts, right?
Yeah, I was about to say y'all say some crazy shit. I was cracking up, but that's why I was all excited to be here because I love it. I love great conversations. Cass, you were right.
Right? You guys should just hang out. I know you'd love each other.
Should.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah,
indeed.
you
know.
Yeah, the parallel here, I just want to draw it because I've felt it as soon as I had the thought to bring Nau T on. There are two people in the room right now that are not me, that are like I know have a deep, abiding, deep spiritual connection that is sort of unquestioned and like it's not weird because it's just like, no, that's just how it is. And I feel the connection to the divine, but there was zero preciousness about either one of you in that space. Like you will cuss, you will cut, you will fart, you will do whatever needs to be done to have the conversation.
Oh
and
yeah.
That's that thing of like, even when you guys were in a slight disagreement about a particular detail of the framing, it doesn't matter. Point being, what was I trying to say? You're not trying to prove anything. You guys are both coming from a place of like, oh shit, yeah, fuck yeah, let's talk about that because that shit is interesting and that is deep. And I don't think that goes to the like people aren't interested in healing thing. I think that's all. Like people don't want to just be able to be open to each other and enjoy that space.
Yeah. Listen, man, you just hit the nail on the head. So I was having a moment, and like I really am more interested in having conversations like this than about conversations about other people. Does that make sense?
Like dishing?
Yeah, like this. Don't get me wrong. I love the cheese, man. I'm here for it. I'm here for it, honey. I'll listen. I'm not good at I'm a vault. Oh, but I love it. A little juicy. But it's like we talk about what's going on with other people so that we don't have to talk about what's going on with us.
Well, that's the whole thing. I almost think literally everything everyone is doing in reality is an elaborate attempt to just not have these conversations, to just not face what's going on internally.
Yeah.
And I'm stuck on what you said, Cassidy, because I'm like, I don't remember there being any disagreement in this conversation.
It was a minor quibble around like aliens versus comedic versus.
And Cassidy knows me. It was.
And it wasn't even my point being. It was like there was no friction because there is no need for friction because you're exploring an idea as opposed to comparing standpoints. Like I think that's what other people do in conversation is to go, my thing. Okay, you're done talking. Well, my thing, as opposed to where we find what is the inquiry we're going into here.
Yeah.
I mean, I almost
like a mystery, unraveling a mystery.
Exploring and having a good time. I almost feel like you're talking about, I mean, that's sort of like the thing we're naming that I'm hearing us name is like, people don't want to like go inside and find out what your deal is and face your vulnerability and feel your shit because they'd rather be right. It's just my ego against your ego. And I want to be right about it. But nobody's understanding what's the motivation behind needing to be right.
Exactly.
And if you were to look at why you need to be right so bad, you wouldn't need to be right anymore.
It's all true. It's all
a great
true.
irony.
Katie, have you been reading my book?
I think I wrote my own version of your book.
I think you're right.
I mean, but you know what this points to is kind of what you're saying, Cass, which is that, I mean, these things are not, I mean, these are universal teachings. They come from every path and every system of awakening. It's all everywhere. It's just once you start looking, you realize, every single thing teaches you. If you stick with any teaching about anything, it takes you to, you got to go inside and find the vulnerability under your need to be right. It's under everything. It's the fabric of what makes up the matrix. And it's just people are invested in the matrix, so they don't want to know the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, that returns to our original conversation before Nau T came on about like what's joyful about the relationship I'm engaging in right now. Like, there's no need to be right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There's no need to, and but see that's not the programming we get though. And that's what's unfortunate, because a lot of folks are just doing what they think is supposed to do. You know, we're number one, right? We're number one. So yeah. And I think there's hope. I think that, I mean, like I said, when I look around and see, right, where we are in the arc, it gives me a little bit of hope, because, oh my gosh, we have been terrible. We may be terrible again, but there are some other places where we've been brilliant and shining.
What do you think about, I mean, I almost hate to go here, but what do you think about, I mean, what's happening with the Trump era and all the people still following Trump? Like, how do you put that in the framework of we've been terrible and we'll be terrible again? I'm like, yeah, kind of like 20 seconds ago.
Yeah.
And right now.
Yeah, no, that's,
you know
like,
what I mean?
It's the ebb and flow. Listen, as long as there's politics and government, because honestly, we're governed because we're governable. You dig? The supporters, they're not governable. You know what I mean? They're not playing by the rules. They have their arsenals and all these other things. And I think it's important for us to be aware of them, because they've never gone away, right? Before they were Hitler, and then the, Aryan Nation, and we've seen this. They've never gone away,
right?
Like they go and they do whatever they do, and then they show up again, and then they leave, and then they show up again. And the thing is, though, like I train, I go to the gym, I work on I go to the range, because there are people out there who don't want to use their words. So it's good for me to be able to speak their language so that they can still understand what I'm saying when I say I'm not having it.
Right. That's good.
If you put your hands on me, I say, hey, if we're having a conversation and you're being disrespectful, or, whatever, you're saying things I'm not interested in, I go like, I'm not interested in that. I say, good day, sir. Right. And then handle it like that. But if you're trying to put hands on me, or heaven forbid, you're shooting at me, if you can find ammo, because, there's a shortage of that, which makes me giggle. Yeah, there's a shortage of ammo just because of the pandemic.
Oh, because everyone piled it up?
Well, no, because people aren't making it.
Oh.
That's not an essential, what is the...
it's not an essential service.
It's not an essential service. And so there's a pipeline that supports that, right? Like bullets don't just show up. Somebody's got to make them, just like cars and everything else that we deal with. Well, that pipeline has kind of been shut down a little bit. So if you didn't stockpiling, now is not the time to, right? But my brother has a shirt and it says Tai Chi in case you run out of ammo. But he's had it for years, because we joke about that, right? I prefer an empty hand, because I'd rather hit you with a pole than
Now I want to ask a little bit more in detail about some of the martial art work you do, now that I know that that's a thing you do. What can you tell? This is a very specific question that may not apply to the specific brand of whatever form of martial art you do. So forgive me if I'm fully on another planet here. But the concept that sort of was probably popularized by like movies, but I have a couple, believe it or not, Aikido master friends. Mm-hmm. And they do talk about the concept of, someone comes at you with force and you use their energy and momentum against them, as it were, or you use it to like, is that a concept you work with in the arts that you play in?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I want to know how that works, because just if I may specify my question a little more, in my mind, when I think about applying that technique or practice, I imagine it's like the ultimate interesting paradox, because you have to apply some energy to the movement of their energy that's coming at you, but you can't resist it at all, right? Because the moment you go to resist it, now you're fighting against it rather than using its own momentum. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. So the Aikido,
which makes it seem very, very hard to do.
Yeah, it takes practice, just like anything else. So it's hard at the beginning. It's fun at the end. So yeah, and how that gets applied, so it's just about knowing when and where you want to apply that resistance, where you want to push back, if you want to push back at all. The thing about Aikido practices, you see Aikido folks just do people like ragdolls.
Yeah.
They just throw them around and roll them around. But if at any point in time they want to stop rolling them and break them, simple.
They can.
Yeah.
I have a memory from my childhood. My dad studied Aikido for a long time. And we had this big room that we had built in the back of our house. It was this big round stone room. Ooh. And we would line the walls with pillows. And then we would play a game, which was us attacking dad. And he would just spin us into, but he would guide our attack until he could throw us safely into a pillow.
Wow.
Right? So I understand on such a visceral level, it's not hard in my mind because it's just about circles, or it's just about continuing. It's about continuing the motion until it's like aiming a fire hose. It's just like where the hose should go, or where the river needs to, it's diverting the river.
Exactly.
But you don't stop the river. You just guide it until it's time to release it over there.
Yeah. And that's what I mean about the empty hand. And it's so much more fun to hit you with a pole, right? If you think about walking down the street and all the different things that are around you that are not pillows that you can be thrown into.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a whole different thing.
Wow. This is great. I've been working. Yeah, I see it. I've been working, the spiritual ninja thing from such an energetic level beyond out. How do I say, not beyond the body, but not in a body way where it's not about moving body. Yeah, it's around. Well, except that nothing is non-physical, right?
Right, right.
I'm working energetically and spiritually to dissipate for people what is a physical problem inside of them. But we start at the spirit level and dissipate it energetically from the spirit level, and then it drains out of the physical level last. So it's the same, in other words, we're manipulating quote unquote matter, physical things through energy manipulation because you can. But I love hearing you talk about it because you're coming at it from, you've been integrating all of your energetic work with the body. It's with move the body, manipulate objects in space and move them around. And I was just talking to Cassidy before you came on. We were talking at the beginning today of some really deep, crazy shit that's been going on in my reality because of some energy work. And now I want to get back to it and talk about it, Cassidy, and tell you the story I was going to tell you, because I want to share it with you too, sis, to see I don't know. I want to see how it lands for you. And I'd love to hear, I have a feeling you're going to have a martial arts parallel story.
Okay.
I bet you if I tell you the story, you'll be like, that reminds me of how blah, blah, blah. Now I could be wrong and projecting, of course.
Let's see. I want to know.
Before we jump in, I'm just going to lay out, it's 5:30 now. That's fine. It's totally fine. We have technically a half hour left, and if we want to get into the records, we will, maybe. But I can also go a little bit over, but I'm just letting you know where we're at.
I can't go over. So
okay.
We do have half an hour left. How important does it feel to you to go into the records?
No, we don't. Okay. Nah.
I mean,
I told myself, I was like, yeah, see how you feel. And so look, that's
so you
great.
were
That's
even a maybe no anyway. Okay.
Yeah, look, that's easy for me. And look, maybe we'll come back and do them later.
Yeah. I like it.
No, this is such a good conversation. I don't want to stop it. So let's keep going. Fuck yeah.
Okay, so now this is going to get really esoteric now. We're going to get out in space, okay? So just preparing you. So I was telling Cassidy moments ago, we were talking about how this new thing happening for me in the realm of the divine light. So okay, tiny bit of context. I don't know how much you've listened to us talk or looked at my, I don't know what you know, so I'll just give you a tiny bit of context.
Okay.
So I do this thing called, I call it like divine light healing, where people come in, whatever problem you have, we can treat it by basically flooding the place in your heart and your nervous system that's holding the pattern together. We flood it with divine light, which breaks it apart and dissolves it into nothing. So as I, have been to 3 healing schools, which were each 4 years long, and studied all the millions of different ways you can do this, because I've always been fascinated and been an energy healing nerd forever, even more, like as much as my word nerdery, maybe more. Anyway, one of the things lately that I'm deep into is this transmission of what's known as the Christ light. So the guy named Jesus who came to the planet, my point of view is he was a human man, but who carried such an elevated frequency and level of this thing called the Christ light that he was able to teach people from the perspective of being the Christ light. Now, when I ask in the Akashic records, which for me is a realm of consciousness where I get to I get to receive anything the divine will give me, anything the universe will give me. It's all available there. So in the records, when I say, will you bring the Christ light through? It does come through. And I just did a 4-day healing retreat for other people where I transmitted the Christ light for 4 days. Now, Christ light is so effing powerful and bright. And by the way, we are not talking about religion right now. We are talking about the light, the direct light of the Christ, right? Okay. We're not talking about what the book that the people wrote that codified a dogma around, manipulating the Christ light to their own purposes. Okay.
Right.
The Christ light was so fucking strong for those 4 days that it erased eons of shit in the back of my brainstem and rebuilt my nervous system and fucking blew some shit out of my 3rd chakra and reorganized the crystal ball at the center of my head. Crazy shit went on. And one of the sort of central thing that occurred for me was it kind of obliterated the space between my human access to what I call the divine light, the space between my access to the divine light and my access to what I call the quantum entanglements of reality. In other words, yeah, I know.
No, I really love it.
know.
You're speaking my language. Say more. More.
Okay. So what it used to be like before a week ago was I'd go into the Akashic records, bring divine light through, heal a thing for a person or myself. And then I would notice that after I was in the records and we closed the records, my life was affected by the work we did with the divine. Now shit is happening where I'm just walking around with another layer, sis, of the veil removed all the time, such that, and now I'm going to tell you a story of how this showed up in practical reality to try to make this make any sense to anyone other than me. So we do this 4 days of transmitting and all this crazy shit goes on and the clients are having a huge experience and I'm having a huge experience and then it ends. And then I had to drive, or I chose to drive a car from Northwest Massachusetts across the country to Denver because my car was in Denver and I had a rental car here and I could have flown, but I had a terrible, terrible experience flying on the way out. So I canceled my flight back and decided to drive. And I happen to love driving.
Nice.
So I drive from Massachusetts to Buffalo to Grand Rapids, Michigan to Nebraska to Denver. Okay. Wow. There was a day, and it was the Nebraska day. It was on my way to Lincoln, Nebraska. This is what happened. I'm going to just tell you the literal things that happened. And this is an example this big of how much this is happening all the time in my life right now. By the way, part of why I'm sharing this is because it's so freaky and amazing and wonderful, but like, what? To me, who's experiencing it, that it's like, I need to bounce it off some other fucking people for a second. Okay. So, and maybe a person who could hear me, maybe you can hear me. I don't know. My dog kind of can. Okay. I'm in the car and I'm going, and now this is how the quantum entanglements play out. So we're in the car and you know how you do a road trip and you go through, like, you're crying 1 second because you're thinking about your childhood. And then 20 seconds later, you're listening to your favorite song. And then you call a girlfriend and then you just do a lot of shit and you go through things, right? Anyway, I'm in the car driving to Lincoln, Nebraska from Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I'm thinking to myself, God, I was just in New York, and I spent 8 days in New York, by the way, before Massachusetts. And I'm thinking, my God, I haven't been back to New York in 20 years. And what a trip. And I'm actually like kind of thinking about, maybe I moved back to New York, and I'm really getting a lot of energetic yeses on that. I'm thinking, am I going to really fucking move to New York City? And I look to my right. I am in either Indiana or Nebraska. I can't remember. I didn't really know. I was just on a freeway. And I look to my right in either Indiana or Nebraska. And the big green street sign on the freeway says Brooklyn. And I go, oh, that's funny. I was just thinking about New York and wondering, do I go? And I'm like, oh, that could be a sign, but like, I'm not going to take it too seriously. 20 minutes, let's say later, now like I'm grooving to some other song in the car, and I'm thinking other thoughts, and I'm thinking, my God, if I move to New York, am I going to like leave Memphis? I just moved to Memphis, but like, it really feels right. This idea of maybe moving to New York, and it's such a funny place, and Montezuma County is just amazing and gorgeous. And I look to my right, I'm not kidding. And the next big street sign says, Montezuma County, exit here. Now, Montezuma County is where I live in Colorado. Remember, I'm in Indiana now.
Right.
So I'm going, well, that's weird. Okay. I keep driving. My friend Kat calls me. We're chit-chatting back and forth. She lives in Emeryville, and we're chit-chatting, and she's going, you lived in California 17 years. She goes, remember that time we met at Pete's in Oakland? And I'm going, we have a whole bonding session about Oakland. Mid-conversation, I look to my right, and there's a sign that says Oakland.
Wow.
Now, it starts to happen so much that I'm like, hold on. Once you have 3, 1 is one thing, 2 is kind of, but 3, you're like, not only, you guys, did that continue to happen for 8 hours, and I'm going to tell you more. It gets crazier, but get this crazy shit. The things I saw, the physical signs on the road, the literal road, were moving backwards in time in my life narrative. So Brooklyn was the place I was most recently in. Montezuma County is where I moved to 8 months ago. Before that, I was in Oakland. And then it went grad school, Miami, which is where I was before that, treatment, when I went to eating disorder treatment 20,000 years ago, and then back to New York City, which is where I started the car ride.
Right.
So I'll give you the rest of the examples. A few minutes later, now I'm super aware of it, and I'm going, well, does me being aware of it make it stop happening? I thought, how that,
Yeah.
Sometimes if you're like,
Schrodinger's cat.
Magic. Yeah. Yes. Like I see the magic, so the magic is going to stop. Right. And I was like, that's okay. Let's find out. Right. I pull off the freeway in Montezuma County, and I'm aware we just did Oakland. So I'm thinking, well, what was before Oakland? I guess that would be grad school, or maybe LA, as I lived in LA for a while. I'm thinking to myself, what would be before Oakland? Maybe it would be grad school when I moved there with Brian, and we drove across the country from Miami to UC Davis. And I'm not kidding. I had that thought, and a millisecond later, coming off the effing freeway into Lincoln, Nebraska, there is a sign that says the Brian Daste Memorial Freeway, spelled Bryandaste, which is how my boyfriend Brian Daste spelled his fucking name. And that was the Brian I was thinking of as I literally was thinking, what would be before Oakland in my narrative? Oh, grad school, Brian Daste Memorial. Now I'm really freaking out. I come off the ramp, and the music playing on my Spotify, I don't recognize that music. I usually play the same like 4 albums over and over. And I look at my Spotify because I don't recognize the song playing. Song playing is a song I don't know. I still don't know what it is, by an artist named Willow. Who was I hanging out with almost exclusively right before I met Brian Daste and moved across the country? My girlfriend Willow, who I met in treatment in Miami. And you guys, that was the whole day until I went to sleep. It got so fucking freaky that I called my friend Blossom, who I was just been with in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I tell her what's happening. And she's like, well, shit, soon you're going to be in the womb. You're going to be reborn. Right. And we're laughing about it or whatever. And I like pulled the covers up over my face, like at a certain point, like I'm just going to go to bed because I don't know what happens after I come back to New York, where I used to, you know what I'm saying?
Rebirth.
I'm going to stop talking. I want you to say words. What happened?
No.
Because I know what my theory
That's
is.
what, if your friend is a rebirth. I mean, like, it's the Christ light. What is Christ about? We're in April. Come on, this is resurrection time. What do you know? You're there. You plugged in. You're plugged in, kid. You're plugged in. I don't know where the plug is, but and you're not crazy. I have a similar situation when I was like really on my dean. Like, I was on my shit. I was meditating. I was like vegan. I was not fucking around. I was like, I started hearing people's thoughts.
Oh, I'm with you.
Yeah, I started hearing people's thoughts, and I was like, nah, because, well, actually, I was I was transmitting shit, so I would think it, and then the response would come, and I was like,
wait, stop? Did it stop? You stopped?
Oh yeah. And I'm gonna tell you. So like this shit was happening, and I was like, nah, this, you know. Because we don't want to believe that.
Just of what that looked like how it manifested.
It might be something like, I would think, or like it was during the time that I was playing in the band. So I'd be like, damn, I never heard, I never heard Jay play that like that before. I wonder what she's doing. And then like she would be like, this fucking paradiddle is driving me crazy. So she would give me the answer to what she was doing, but I hadn't said anything to her.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So I was like, okay, no, all of this is just coincidence. It's coinky dinks, right? But then, I felt a little janky about it, but I was like, I gotta know. So I started sending questions to specific people just to see what would happen.
Yes.
And when that shit was like, I was like, okay, this is too much. I felt like one of the X-Men without Professor Xavier. And I knew what it was. It was just that my filters were so clear that I was plugged the fuck in. So I asked my bandmate who smoked cigarettes, and I took a beer from the local band beer area, and I proceeded to cloud my filters again because I was not having it. I was not having it. It was too. I wasn't here where I am now.
Yeah.
And now that I know that can happen, I think I'm a little scared to go there again. However, you're plugged in.
But what do you think would happen? Like, what's the fear? What fear of what? Too much power?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There are two things that I've known for a very long time, two careers that I knew were off limits to me, and that's banking and law enforcement. Because, there's a dark side.
Yeah.
There's a dark side, and I'm aware of it, and I dance with it in ways that are not harmful, right? Like I will binge Gotham all day long and be like, ooh, because it's just so dark and dirty and wrong. And there is a part of me that really kind of likes that dark underside, but I think it is, again, to the ebb and flow, the balance of things. There's darkness in the light and there's lightness in the dark, and it makes sense that they would be, in balance.
Yeah.
So yeah. And so until, it's not completely gone. It's intuition. It's just the level of it, right? And I know that the clearer I am, the more I'm gonna take. Like you were saying, the levels of the veil disappear.
I can understand that fear. Like I'm thinking about you made a Gotham reference. I'm thinking about the first season of Jessica Jones on Netflix. Yes, where the bad guy. It's the most terrifying bad guy I've ever, for me, because his power was he could just tell you to do stuff. That's it. He could just be like, go punch that guy in the face.
Yeah.
And that level of control is so terrifying to me. That is so worse than any other like weird thing that you might do.
Yeah.
Like, so I can imagine having that, some version of that power could be really frightening because you might not trust yourself.
Exactly. And even just not only not trusting myself, but getting like not knowing how to use it properly. Example being, in order for me to check if it's really happening, I have to test it. That felt invasive, but I had to know, right? So like if I'm going to manage this thing, I have to know if it's real or if it's Memorex, and I have to test it. Well, at that point, it was either dive deeper in, right? What else can I do?
Yeah.
Or I'm going to sit this one out and just watch so.
I have a third option, which I think is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
This is the third option. Because here's what I want to believe. Okay, let me see how to frame this. The other day, a friend of mine and I were talking about, you know how every guru in the world who attains a certain level, like Wild Country guy and Yogi Bhajan and everybody who gets real high, they fucking fuck children, or they shoot heroin, or they have to have a Rolls Royce or nothing. Like they become maniacs of the lower self, right?
Yes.
I have a version of that happens for me where with the Christ light, for example, when I drove away from 4 fucking days of it, which was too many days. You know where I went first? Burger King. Because I was like, I'm going to eat the heaviest meal I can possibly imagine because I need to feel like I am in this body. I was so, and I was like, cocoon, I'm going to eat a brick, right? And I watched the way that my relationship with food plays out depending on how high I just went and like which choices I make. Anyway, that's the way the balance like tries to come back, like with the, like you said, the dark and the light. Because I'm so committed to not becoming Yogi Bhajan or Wild Country guy or the Nexium people or Access Consciousness or the people who led my Sufi healing school who did some dick bullshit stuff. I'm not willing to become that. So I'm aware that what that means is I have to have a very conscious, healthy relationship with my lower self. I have to, you know what I mean? I have to really use it and apply it and give it a voice. Otherwise, it'll get expressed in some weird way. So my theory is that's my human job. My human job is like make a bunch of dick jokes, talk about farts and poop, and like do all my lower self stuff that I think is so funny and whatever, because it's a way to give the lower self expression and keep me here without doing weird lower self shit. But also, I think that if my intention in getting so high with the light is, well, let me erase that sentence. I'll put it like this. I am so surrendered to being a servant to the divine that if I tried to manipulate it that's the sentence. That's what I think is true. If I even tried for a second, Sis Nau T, to manipulate it for some weird fucked up end, like make so much money and then squash all the poor people, whatever I would do, right? I will not be allowed to get away with it.
Right. It won't work
because I'm not in charge. I'm not actually in charge. Seeing through the veil is not a thing I asked for. It's not a thing I really said, could I be a magic wizard? No, I just was doing a Christ-light retreat. But you know why? Because God fucking told me to.
See?
And yes, ma'am, I did it. So I kind of think maybe I'm safe, because if I'm truly surrendered and if I remember every day and commit to my aim being to serve the light, I get in trouble fast anyway when I try to go like do weird shit with it.
Right. I agree wholeheartedly. And I think that just based on, like, I don't know you, but just based on what I've heard and from the podcast and the time that we're spending, I think you're absolutely right. And I think that you're in a place where you can manage that in that way. I know that I hear you. For myself, I was not in a place right at that time. Right. If it happened now, yeah. And now that I know it can happen, I kind of have an option. So there's that thing. But or at least it feels like an option. But what came through when you were talking was in terms of embracing the lower self. What I thought about was children, because children are assholes, but they're not assholes because they're assholes. They're assholes because they're still in that lower brain space.
That's right.
They're still in that space, because you were talking about dick jokes and fun. I'm like, yeah, that's the kid shit. And that's one of the things that I love about my folks, is that we are very into playing. We play and we do dumb shit, and we say dumb shit because it's fun and it's funny and it's base, and it doesn't have to be, all the things. It's not mean though. We're not being mean. There's, fart jokes aren't mean. They're crude. They're base. They're old.
They are a victimless crime. They are absolutely a victimless crime.
And that's the thing about children. And what would we say? What did I say when you told me about this? What I thought? Rebirth.
That's right. You're right. Yes.
So I think you're on it. And I would add one thing though to your equation for management.
Please.
Keep Cassidy around because he'll tell you if you start getting out of pocket and doing shit.
Well, Katie's been doing that for me for a while. I'm learning to do that. I appreciate that. No, I do. I call you out on some things.
I was about to say, Cassidy, is there folks you're not calling out in this piece? I feel like Cassidy's a call out kind of cat. That's the kind of people I hang out with.
Funny. I guess I do. I'll take it.
I mean, like when I say calling folks, it's just, when we care, we care enough to tell you the truth.
Right.
Well, and Cass, you and I had that. We had a conversation recently where I was saying to you, Cass, what was I saying about like, oh, I know. I mean, we did a play together a few years ago where I said some shit backstage that Cassidy looked at me and was like, you understand that we're like the elder states people here. You can't say that shit because you're setting a tone. Well, Cassidy, to be fair to you, you didn't say it to me like you can't say that shit.
Right.
You said it more like, I don't think I can join you on this joke train, Katie, because people are looking up to us as and I was like, yeah, but we're just showing them that we're free spirited. And you were like, no. And so you did do that for me.
All right. I love it. Yeah. I love that is true. Thank you. Yeah,
it is. And that's been my experience, Cassidy.
So I'd like to be.
Yeah. You don't sugarcoat shit, and if something needs to be called out, large or small,
I know that the languaging that we've been using a lot, and I've been really enjoying is, call in versus call out, which is like, let me bring you into this, truth, as opposed to push you away with this truth.
Exactly.
Or cancel you with this truth, or whatever fucking language we want to use about that. But it's like, I'm going to bring you in. Hold on, let me bring you into this.
Yeah.
Listen, I have to acknowledge how valuable that is that you did that with me, Cass. You could have easily de-friendified me. I was telling Alfred today, my current boyfriend person, Sis, just so you know, I was telling Alfred today about a friend who we don't talk anymore because, oh gosh, it's a long story, but basically she pushed me away for a thing I said that I still think wasn't offensive to anyone, but she felt it was. But rather than open a dialogue with me and say like, hey, can we talk about that thing you said in that comedy show you did? Okay. But she said, and I'll give you another example, Cassidy, of where you succeeded at this is I had that one show live that you saw at the Aurora.
That's right.
And I said to you after it was weird during that one joke. I had one joke in an hour where nobody laughed.
The audience
and I was nope. And I just said like, I don't know what the fuck happened there. And you were like, I know what happened. And you told me because what the joke was, let's fully out myself. I was pretty actively shitting on homeless people in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. Well, to my own, just to say context, what I was trying to shit on was the way that there's one particular homeless guy who kept telling me to fucking smile, and I wanted to punch him in his mouth because I was like, do not tell women to smile. But then I ranted off of that and just was like, not okay. The shit I said was not okay about homeless people. It was like judgy and shitty and terrible. And everybody just went to sleep like, fuck you. And then you told me, Cassidy, you said, well, we are in Berkeley and this is a place where a lot of people feel very protective and, homeless people are people, Katie. And you were kind of talking about them like they're lesser than you. And I went, oh, fuck, really good point. Yeah. Now, you know why I was open and receptive is because you opened a dialogue with me and you called me into the possibility of a new framework. Whereas, okay, I'm going to be specific and say the thing, and you guys can tell me if I need to be called in. I'm going to transparently be available again. I said in a show I did a few months ago, maybe like a year ago now, online, I called somebody, I think I called Donald Trump a fucktard.
Right. You did the tard thing.
Oh.
Yeah.
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 The dicey word.
Now, it's a dicey word. Yeah.
I understand. Not great, right? Because I would never say retard at this point in my life on stage or anywhere really.
Look, I said it in my living room earlier today and I had to reel it in. But here's the thing. I'm a word nerd. I meant it literally. It
You were
wasn't
literally
about
saying
a
we
person.
want to slow down the music.
It wasn't about a person. It was about a practice that was going in reverse.
It was slowing,
Right.
which is what the word means.
And I said it, and then I was like, okay, wait, pause. Because it's like if I said that in the middle of the room at the chateau, middle of the living room at the chateau, I would have to be like,
let's not do that. Anyway, so what happened? Your friend just shut you out because of it.
I'm hearing you guys already say like, oh, no, I wouldn't say fucktard. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's other words.
Okay.
The basic reason is it's not necessary. You can do better.
Yeah.
That's often my argument on any of these things.
Okay. We should talk about it more and I want to at some point. But what my friend said to me was this sentence. First of all, she said, saw your show, great work. Let me know when you're ready for some feedback. And I was like, never is when I didn't ask what? You're my friend. Let me know when you're ready for some feedback. So I didn't respond because frankly, I didn't really want any feedback. Didn't need it, didn't want it, wasn't open to it. Wasn't ready. Just did the show 20 minutes ago. Right. Not ready for feedback. Okay. So time goes by and I don't follow up with her because time goes by and I'm like looking at the show and I'm thinking, yeah, I'm pretty comfortable with everything I said and did. I don't need her feedback. So we start chit-chatting about other stuff. How's your day? How's your husband? Chit-chat on a text. And she says, husband's good, this and that. I'd like to give you that feedback now. And I'm like, and I say, well, I'm not actually looking for any feedback on the show right now. So could we maybe not do that or chat about something else? And she doesn't respond. So the conversation ends. Then weeks later on social media, on Instagram, she posts, in your show, you said the phrase fucktard. I could never go to a show where someone was going to say that. I would never, or something like, as your friend, I need you to know I could never again attend your show if you were going to use that word. A, on social media. B, I would never again attend your show if you use that word. Now,
right, that's not a call in, that's a call out.
Right.
Yeah. That's a push away.
The energy in it was,
and a lightweight cancel.
I'm going to show all the people watching that I'm above what you said and you're wrong. And I want to spread that across the land. I want people to identify me as someone who isn't toxic like you are.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, it's almost over.
I know, but you have more. Sorry. I apologize. Continue.
It's almost over. So I deleted the conversation. I deleted it and then I immediately texted her privately offline and said, hey, can we have this conversation not on social media? I feel really frustrated that you're calling me out on something that I already told you I don't want your feedback on this show. So thanks for ignoring that. And B, on social media, really? And then she said, you're right. I shouldn't have done it on social media. I'm sorry. That's fine. It's okay that you deleted it. I just can never attend one of your shows again if you're going to say that. And I said, okay, I understand. Period. And we've never spoken again. Because to me, now let's be fair, there was other stuff in our friendship. This was like a last straw thing. It wasn't like one problem. And then I was like, we're not friends. It was like many problems. And then this was like, and I'm done. But the reason I'm done is not because she's necessarily off base about what she wanted to say to me. It was because of how it was handled.
Yeah.
Again, if she had told Cassidy, like, hey, when you said fucktard, it kind of like, you don't have to say tard. You could, we could have a talk about it.
And then, if she just started with, rather than, can I give you feedback? If she just said, hey, there was a thing in your show that I would actually really like to talk to you about. Like made it more personal, like personalized it. Would that have helped, do you think? If she'd have come at you with more, there's actually something that is important to me that I want to talk to you about something you said in your show.
Yeah, if she had said something like, I'm into the I statement kind of language, where if someone says, I loved your show, it was mostly really great.
I've got some notes. Sorry.
Yeah, no, but there was one thing you said that really triggered me or brought some stuff up for me. And I kind of was wondering if we could talk about it, because I just want to hear your point of view after I share mine. Like, could we have a talk about it? It would have felt like I would have just received it really well. I just would have. But it had the energy behind it of, I cancel you. I'm better than you. You're wrong. Period. Door closed.
Right.
And I was just like, not going to debate her on social media about who's right or wrong. Not going to do it.
Well, that's the right or wrong problem. Yeah.
Right. I was just about to say, this is where we get into that Aikido piece, right? Because like she came at you sideways and both of y'all kind of were just like, well, and as you said, this was not just a one-time incident. It was kind of a long time coming, right? Which, if I put that in a self-defense thing, that now we're talking about, you know, unhappy relationships that we stay in, right? Right. And so her coming at you in the way that she did, again, not coming from the eye plate, not looking outside, taking it off on you. I can't believe you said that versus, oh, that hurt me somewhere. Because clearly it hit hard. Clearly it hit hard. And that's the other thing, piece.
Yeah. To answer, that's it. That is the piece. Because to answer your question more articulately, now that I've heard what you just said, sis, it's like, if she had said, it really hurt my feelings, made me feel bad. Like it made me feel like you said earlier, Cassidy, that your current lady friend said to you, like, eek, that didn't feel good.
Right.
And I'm going to share why for me, it didn't feel good, rather than you're wrong. I won't go to a show where someone says that wrong, bad, bye. She didn't own I don't know anything about her about this.
Right. And but that's the piece, right? If this were a martial arts situation, it's like, I don't know why you fucking swung at me, but I'm not going to swing back. I'm just going to ragdoll you around until you get to a place where you either uncle or I throw you into the pillows. The pillows, not the pole.
Not the wall. Not the wall. 100%.
Right. Because and that's the dance, right? Where we get caught up.
100%. And I'm pretty good at this point at doing that. If it's someone where I feel like if it's a safe playing field where I know that if I go soft and open my heart to you and go, hey, tell me more about that. I want to hear how that landed for you. Like, I'm actually quite good at doing that when I trust that the other person is going to share from their vulnerability. But I had so much evidence at that point that this person likes to win and be right and put people in their place. That's her whole MO. That I was like, I'm not going to play this game anymore. And I don't even want to learn the lesson you were about to teach me. Because guess what, you guys, right now, you taught me the lesson with the millimeterist response. You both just went, ooh.
That's all you needed.
And then I was like, got it. You're right.
Yeah.
Notes taken.
Right. And so listen, again, in the self-defense piece, right? 3 ounces of force to divert a ton is what it is, how it's done in Tai Chi. That's the principle. That's the practice. But it's the same thing of what Cass was saying about running folks around in circle. And I want to put this challenge to you, Katie, right? Because here's where we're talking about the warrior piece. Yeah, it's easy to do this with Cass or with you or with other folks who speak the same language. But with motherfuckers who are hurt and flailing, what do you do with that? What do you do? Now, it's one thing if you're attacking me and I know that your intention is to hurt me, I'm going to hit you with the pole. But if you're attacking me because you're hurt, and I'm able to see this just because I'm looking through a compassionate lens, it's like, oh, damn. Like, people lash out when they feel attacked, right? So when I know that when you're lashing out at me, something I did made you feel attacked, even though I know I didn't do anything. All right, now I'm just going to spin you around and throw you into a pillow.
Okay, so this is what I have to say about that, is that this happens with clients all the time. Clients project their parents onto me all the time if they're really in, and I see it, it's very transparent. So I'm very good at gently spinning them into the pillow in that context, because they're paying me to teach them about consciousness. But in a context with a friend, again, where the history has shown me this person doesn't want to learn. This person wants to win. I just sort of stepped out of the ring. Instead of like, you're not going to understand. If I swish you into the pillow, you're just going to come back and punch me in the eye again. So there's a difference between, you have to know when it's worth doing anything.
Exactly. Because sometimes, and I say this as well, sometimes the best self-defense is just to walk away.
Yeah, and I think that's what it ultimately
And
is
that's
what you did.
hard too.
And that is, I think, a perfect wrap-up point. I've got to run. This has been profoundly satisfying, so fun, and I want to have you back. Will you come back?
I would love to come back. I'm having a blast.
Do it again.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cass and I will talk and figure it out. Thank you for being with us and for all of your wisdom and for this fucking fantastic conversation.
Oh my God.
I appreciate you.
Thank y'all for having me. This is wonderful. Okay, well, take care and be well.
Tell
and
us
we'll talk to you
one more
soon.
time where people can find you. Just one more time. What do they look up on the internet?
Doshe Healing Arts would be the best bet. That'll take you everywhere.
DOSHE.
Yes. Do your work.
Boom.
Boom. See ya.
Peace.
What are you asking for? All of the answers? Say what? All of the answers? Yeah, all the answers.
Hey guys, thanks for listening. We'd love to hear from you. Please email us with your questions so that we have questions to answer in the Akashic Records. Our email address is allanswerspod@gmail.com. That's allanswerspod@gmail.com. And if you'd like to find us on Facebook or Twitter, it's @allanswerspod, @allanswerspod. Thank you. You're going to meet NewMan Manfredson right now.
Yes, NewMan Manfredson. What is up, famous, mysterious person?
You're famous on the pod.
I'm famous.
Curverse. The
Yeah?
podverse.
Oh boy,
Yeah. I told him about NewMan Manfredson.
that's clever.
It's
Pretty clever.
It's good. We got to mask you somehow, unless you just start saying my name, and then we'll decide
We were
about that
trying to be
later.
respectful of you and not use your name.
Well, if you use my real name, they would be like, "Oh, it's a fake name anyway."
That's true. You've got a crazy name.
So like Alfred, oh, that must be a fake name.
Can we say your name on the podcast, or do you want us not to?
I don't care. That's fine.
What if I talk about like your genitals and stuff?
Does that come up frequently?
Also, the podcast has begun, and we are currently,
we're
this
taping
is
right now.
happening.
Okay.
So if I were going to talk about your genitals, should I use the pseudonym?
Sure, why not? Yeah.
Do
that
you
works.
care?
Actually, I don't care.
Okay,
No.
great. We have permission. We're going to have to talk about his genitals for a good hour now.
That was a Sounds Awesome production.